just my opinion on things that I've seen, recently with certainly with Golden Demon, which has sort of caused me a little bit of concern, really, because I've been a lover and follower of Golden Demon since the inception of the competition in the 80s. And I've pretty much liked a lot of the way it's gone, but I must admit this last iteration for Adepticon 2024, there's certainly some highly debatable things that have gone on there, and I'm just going to cover a couple of them here, really. And the first one, to me, I just find a bit nonsensical, really, is the way they've changed the categories. Now, people will have their own opinions on this, but there's certainly room for debate or argument here as to whether some of them really are just not working out. And there's probably three in particular, four really, I would say, that I really think are just not going to work or won't work. The first one, and this lumps into two categories really, is the Warhammer 40k large model or vehicle, and the Age of Sigmar large model or war machine. Now, traditionally you've always had large model and then vehicle or war machine in separate categories, which makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're going to get entries in both categories can be very strong in their own right. And what I believe this has done, and certainly seeing from the numbers of entries and certainly the commended entries in these categories, this wasn't particularly overpopulated, these categories. And I believe that's because this is sort of a dilution of the categories in such a sense that if you're entering this, it's probably pretty hard to know what to enter and what you're going to be up against. Because, in my mind, I can't honestly see how you judge, a large model like an Avatar or a Demon Prince next to a Baneblade or a Rhino or something similar, or a Titan. I just don't see how you judge the two side by side in the same category. And this one, I just find this really strange that, I really don't get it at all. I sort of understand they're trying to squeeze more of these specialist games categories in, like, obviously Underworlds, they want to squeeze Blood Bowl, now Necromunda, etc. But this to me is a real loss, and I just don't see how it can go on with those sort of two categories combined. And that brings me on nicely to the next one I feel quite strongly about, actually, is lumping diorama and duel. This one to me is just a terrible mix of the two categories. And one thing, which I don't think the guys at GW take an awful lot of note of the participants or what people are saying, but a lot of people absolutely love duel, and a lot of people absolutely love diorama, but to me they are, a bit like I said about the previous ones, they are completely separate disciplines. And having someone create a duel where you've got two combatants at either at combat or together and being brought together in some manner, it is a real different discipline to a diorama, which can be anything. It doesn't have to be even battle related. It could just be a scene from an orc village, or a bunch of models that are all together on the march but not necessarily in combat. So I think this really just sort of ruins both of those categories. And I know the winner this year came from the diorama, but to me that category has been highly diluted now, and I think it sort of shows in the numbers of overall. And I'm going to get onto that as well. There's another reason for that, I believe. And the last one is possibly Horus Heresy. it's a bit like the large model of War Machine. Horus Heresy as a whole covers an awful lot of types of miniatures. You've got, Primarchs, you've got standard infantry and sergeants and models, and and then you go right up to vehicles and titans, all sorts of things that I just don't see how you judge them when they're all lumped together. I mean, if you put, like we got in the picture there, I think is, Abaddon or Horus next to a titan, or again a large vehicle. How do you judge the two next to each other? Because they're completely different. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm really sort of, especially after the numbers at Adepticon, I think I'm a little bit fearful of the future for Golden Demon right now if this stays in place. I get the Underworlds and Necromunda, maybe not so much the Necromunda, but yeah, I like Blood Bowl, that's cool, but Underworlds, isn't that really a Warhammer, an Age of Sigmar unit? Necromunda, isn't that really just a unit in Warhammer 40k? I'm not sure they should be broken out into their own categories. Maybe have one guest category per year or something. Like this year it's Underworlds, next year it's Necromunda, next year it's Warcry or something like that. But I'm not sure they need their own categories. Certainly if it means, bludgeoning these other categories like they have. And the last one, which I think made the biggest difference certainly to the participation when you look at the last 2 or 3 Golden Demons, is the changes to the open category. This one to me, this one is highly debatable because I can sort of see both sides, but from a participation and a promotional side of the hobby, this has really destroyed Golden Demon this year. And if you don't know what I mean, I'm talking about the rule change that's put in place to say that you can't enter third-party sculpts, which were a lot of the top painters were entering this category with exactly that. They were going off and using 3D sculptors to create these incredible miniatures and fantastic likenesses of Games Workshop artwork across the years, and they've looked tremendous. And I just think they're amazing promotional pieces for Games Workshop. But Games Workshop, in their wisdom, have decided, no, we don't want that. And I know there's been a few painters that have bleated about, it's not fair, they've got an advantage, but it's still a painting competition. It shouldn't matter what the sculpt is. It's still about painting. But I think what that leads to is that the main change, I think, with the rules, and here is the 2024 terms and conditions, and it clearly says here now, entries may only contain components manufactured by GW. So whereas before, the open category, for instance, would say, basically anything. It can be self-built, you can create your own thing. I'm reading this now as the open competition now is not really open. It's just saying you can enter things, but according to the rules, they still have to only contain components manufactured by GW. So this means you cannot incorporate third-party products. And this, I guess, means having sculpts or models done by 3D sculptors that are not GW. So I think this has put a very limited spin, certainly on the open category. And my overall opinion is, especially looking at the numbers from Adepticon, and certainly when you see how many commended entries there were, they were very low indeed. And I know 1 or 2 categories only had 3 commended entries, and they were the gold, silver and bronze. So there was no other entries that were deemed worthwhile of a commended. So that just shows that those categories must have been very weak. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think, guys? I just I don't like the way they've gone now. And again, it's this GW policy of being so protective and paranoid about their, you know, their IP, I guess. And some of that I get, but you know, this thing with the open competition, particularly if you're giving people the opportunity to enter models or sculpts, you know, that are basically your artwork that they've replicated and just look fantastic, surely you're only doing yourself more harm than good. And the other thing, when you're attracting top painters like Eric Swinson, Sergio Calvillo, etc., that's only got to be a good thing for GW, right? I think so, but I'm not so sure. You know, let me know what you think, guys. You know, put me some notes in the comments there. Tell me what you think. But that's my opinion on it. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time for another Brushmaster video.